Thank you very much for coming to the BBK Worldwide talk on reimagining the patient's experience through mHealth technologies. In the words of the great Yogi Berra, I'm going to try to keep this short as long as I can. So, I'm going to be mercifully brief on a lot of these things. So if you see me flashing through these things, hopefully there's going to be a little bit of time at the end for some questions. And if not, then we'll be happy to take any questions at our booth at 1610 1610. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is, I don't know if any of you read the Wall Street Journal, but in the journal today there was just this healthcare and technology report just talking about how telemedicine is transforming healthcare. And on the back of this section also there was a talk about tech and the autistic child, what we've learned. And so it's really just highlighting the importance of how we can integrate mobile technologies into everything we do, particularly in clinical research, because to a large degree, these kinds of technologies have been absent from clinical research. They've been parts of all of the rest of our lives. And so what we've been trying to do over the last 6 years predominantly is trying to integrate them into clinical research. So what I'm going to do today actually is going to review sort of a whirlwind brief history of time of what BBK has done in the last 10 to 15 or 10 years or so, and show you how that's accelerated, its pace is accelerated. Then I'm going to talk about what we're doing in the present, and then what we're going to be doing in the near future. And the reason why I'm just going to be talking about the near future instead of speculating about what's going to be happening 5 years from now is because I want all of you who leave this room today to go away with some ideas about what you can actually implement today. I want you to be able to take this and be actionable. I think that's the good thing, right? Rather than just thinking about a wearable that might be available and clinically validated 5 years from now, okay? So first of all, I'm just going to quickly review what's happened over the last decade. 1999 was when our main product, our content management system, Trial Central Net, was first conceived. And that's really what's going to make everything else possible for us. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But then in 2002, LinkedIn was founded. In 2004, Facebook was founded. 2006, Twitter was founded. And so there's kind of big chunks of time between all of those events. But then really what's been happening is you can see up until about 2008, we hadn't really involved ourselves in the mHealth technologies. But then we really started to get involved in that. Android smartphones started to appear after the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. They appeared in 2008. And that's when BBK started in with mobile advertising. These are all the products and services that we offer today. So this is the history. The mobile advertising started in 2008, and we could just do this kind of advertising in social media. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, those sorts of things. Google network displays. 2009, we saw responsive design websites being incorporated, which was really a response to people using their mobile phones more frequently to access the internet than the desktop computer. And that's not just miniaturizing what you see on the desktop, that's actually trying to provide content that is appropriate to the device that you're using to consume it. We also came out with simultaneous to the iPad launch in 2010, we came out with our e-binder program, which was to be able to get rid of the goal was to actually get rid of the huge binder of information that you have at investigator meetings and try to condense it down onto an iPad so you don't have to print all the information, but also to provide constant updated information throughout the life of the trial. Android tablets appeared in 2011. We introduced a mobile device management system on our binder. We launched RSG-SMS. RSG stands for Ready, Set, Go. Just makes it really easy. We want to be able to message patients who are being involved in studies, talk about, to try to keep them involved and educated about what they were doing in clinical studies. RSG Card was launched, Ready, Set, Go Card. That was our product to reimburse patients on a reloadable debit card. That was our V1 version, was launched then. Dynamic cascading style sheets were introduced, so we could actually change what people consume on each of their devices as well, in terms of the color schemes, fonts, and so on. And then it really started to accelerate. 2012 through 2016, you can see a whole lot's really been happening. So here we actually have V1 and V2 of RSG card being released as well. I'm just going to pick out a few pieces of this before I continue. And that took the system away from being something that just reimbursed people based on information we received from the EDC, all the way through to the V7 launch in 2015, where people could use apps to access all of their information on chip and pin reloadable debit cards. So they're getting all that information about all the purchases they've made, all of the debits that were made onto the card, all through an app. RSG Arrive was launched. RSG Arrive is a concierge travel program that we have for patients. And it's particularly great for studies that are rare disease. There's some issues there where we've brought people from babies that were 2 days old. We managed to get them passports, to get them from one country to another within 2 days to get them randomized into clinical trials. And the service that we've been able to provide to get people from where they live to the trial centers and back has increased so rapidly that we've actually experienced a 2,000% increased growth in that service over the last year. My Clinical Study Buddy was a patient-facing app. It was launched in 2012 on the iPhone, followed up in 2013 on the Android. And My Protocol Pal is a site-facing app that was integrated into the iPhone and Android platforms just a year later. I'm going to talk about how we've actually synchronized that and what that's going to mean for us in the future. Mobile advertising has gone to the really infinitely creepy level here as well. What's happening there is programmatic display, which means real-time bidding on ads. When the ads are actually called from the server, we're actually bidding in real time on what that might mean based on lots of different filters. It might mean that as you actually consume the ad, it might be thinking, what time of day is it? What's the weather like outside? Where do you live? Which websites have you visited before? And then it will bid on the ad and serve you that ad so that you'll be seeing and consuming information that's really, really relevant to you. So all of these things are integrated into our lives. And here in the virtual tours area as well, you might have seen the virtual viewers that we've been giving out at our booth earlier. So we're actually doing virtual tours of sites, and we're integrating this into ideas of gamification as well moving forward. And I'll touch on that just brief minute too. So that's just a history of what we've just done. So what are we doing now, today? Well, first of all, I just want to quickly just throw a quick nod to the clinical teams, by the way. I know that sometimes in certain companies, pharmaceutical companies, there are innovation groups in those companies, and they help drive innovation. But ultimately, we find that it's the clinical teams that actually take the risk. They're the people who have pressure to perform, and yet they're the ones who actually are making a risk with us. They're the ones who put down the money, the ones who pay for these things. And these things have actually helped us advance over time because they've actually taken the risk, and thank you for that. The present now is also about consolidating what we've built so that in the future we can actually have an even brighter future ahead of us by integrating lots of new and exciting things. And so what have we done? Well, for the app, we've actually created an app configuration device in Trial Central Net so that each and every one of you can build your own customized apps through the configuration mechanism of Trial Central Net. What that means is that the app has been created so that for every single protocol that you work on, there's a single code base. And each of the different elements of the app can be accessed for each and every protocol that you work on. So the menu can be different for each protocol. The color scheme can be different for each protocol. The fonts, the content can be different for each protocol you work on. You decide and you help design the app, so you don't have to make a build or buy decision anymore. You actually just configure what you want for all the different studies that you're working on. So instead of having something that could be costly to build or have a long time to build, you can actually do this within a couple of weeks and have this customized for your particular study within 2 weeks. So it's eliminating the build or buy decision for you. You can have exactly the content that you want. All that content is pushed to the sites from TCN, and we've consolidated this so that all of the different languages are available, just as a language dictionary. So whichever countries you wish to roll this out in as well. When somebody chooses those languages, it delivers the content to those individuals in their own particular language as well. So that's what we've done. We've consolidated it into a single code base so that we can maintain it. So when those inevitable changes to the operating system roll around to iOS and to Android, we only have to make one modification to that code base. And all of the apps that we've developed are actually going to be affected positively. So let's talk about the near future. So each one of these things can actually be integrated into that app template. So all of the different menu items that I've talked about, things like offering referrals, offering study contacts, doing pre-screeners, those sorts of things in apps. And now also we can also add these different modular pieces into these apps too. And I'm happy to talk about Apptomics as the first one. Apptomics is a company that BBK is partnering with, and they have created an app, or a suite of apps actually, that are facing or focusing on patients with chronic neurological conditions. And this first app that they've had validated in 2 studies by the University of Cincinnati actually helps to measure and monitor motor functions of patients with Parkinson's disease. And so what this actually also does is it provides real-time data back to physicians to help manage their medications. It's been demonstrated to have a high degree of sensitivity when tracking people's treatments. So I'm happy to announce that in September, this is actually going to be involved in a randomized clinical trial, multi-center clinical trial, and we've been helping build this as well. The next idea is gamification, and this is one that's particularly exciting to me. Perhaps not a new idea, but something that we're actually, again, going to be able to build into a module for the app, so you can swap it into any app for any protocol that you would wish, and you can highly customize this as well. This has been built in HTML5 so that you can actually change all of the backgrounds, change the activities that you're doing. But the idea of gamification, for those who don't know, is taking game-like concepts and applying them to non-game contexts, if you will. So, for example, participating in a clinical trial, let's take that. So participating in a clinical trial, you might want to say, teach a youngster about the reasons why their mother is participating in a breast cancer trial. You might want to take somebody through the informed consent process using a game, a way to make learning fun. I think you get the idea. We're also applying this into the virtual reality viewers that you see. It's easy to make these kinds of games. Like, we may have actually demonstrated a game where you're flying through the brain of an individual and you're zapping neurons and showing how that person might interact with their condition, or how the medication might interact with their condition, the mechanism of action. Also, what's exciting about those is we can also show anatomy. One fella came up to me and said, hey, I would really love to be able to see the anatomy of the human eye from my ophthalmology study. And as he was looking around, you can actually start to build this idea of gamification to teach people about their conditions and what it is to participate in clinical trials. All of this can be integrated into the custom build of your app today, or tomorrow, or whenever it is that you leave DIA. The next one is Arrive Platinum. So you heard me mention about our travel-related services. People can access this from their apps, their itineraries, and so on. We're actually going to expand Arrive so that people can have a full concierge service available. And what I mean by that is that not only are we going to get people from A to B in splendid fashion, we're also going to be able to offer them travel tips when they get there. They'll be able to call somebody. It's pure patient centricity. It's when somebody is unfamiliar with this particular area and traveling to that site, or particularly for rare diseases where they might be traveling long distances, we can actually offer them hotel and restaurant recommendations and so on and so forth. The next piece, I'm going to sort of dodge a slide and go to this one. And this is the most common thing that I get asked. The most common thing that I get asked when talking about apps is, how many people use these apps in studies? How many sites use these apps in studies? Well, I created a little graph to actually try to talk about this and demonstrate it. The issues here are adoption and time. And what creates adoption for us is making sure there's awareness and support for the apps. So if BBK is involved in an investigator meeting, or we have a number of email workflows to encourage people to learn more about the app, those sorts of things. If we have webinar presentations to get people to upload the app, that causes a very big change in the way that people adopt it. Over time, of course, what's king though is content. Content is king. If it creates stickiness. If people adopt the app, but there's no content in the app, then people will go away. So when people are asking me about how many people are going to upload this, how many people are going to use this app, I say, well, which line are you going to be? Are you going to be the light blue line up here, where you have a lot of support and a lot of content? Or are you going to be the dark blue line, which shows low support and low content? And we've had both types of people using the apps, and not surprisingly, people have different experiences. But the key to this is, what we know from data, from a lot of data, is that using things like apps and other systems in clinical trials is a very high indicator of the success of that site. You see that people who are engaged in the actual activities of the trial using these types of things oftentimes have higher cumulative counts of screened patients, better screening and randomization rates, and better retention at their sites. And so by encouraging adoption, keeping people interested, we can actually change the face of how people recruit patients into studies. But the last thing I want to talk about here, before I hand over to my colleague Thomas Klein, is PowerPoints. In order to encourage adoption, we're also making sure that every single time now that you tap on actions within the app, people are rewarded with points for doing so. And that might just accumulate to be bragging rights, that might accumulate to be payments to that particular individual, if it's to do with the site. But my favorite, and the one that we're actually implementing today with a major pharmaceutical sponsor, is to actually have these points accumulate so that we can give donations to charity. So we're having 2 different charities that are pertinent to that particular medical condition. And so the sites, by using the app and becoming better contributors to the study, are also donating money to charities as well. So all of these things are integrated, again, configurable, modular app that can be anything that you want to be, built through TCM, BBK's proprietary platform. So now I'm going to hand over just for a few minutes to Mr. Thomas Klein, who's also going to be talking about something that's very exciting to me, which is the idea that patients can also start to get their data back from participating in clinical trials. And that's something that's been sort of mandated by the fact that HIPAA says that patients are entitled to their data back, and the FDA amendment in 2007, I believe it was, says that sponsors should return the data to patients within 12 months. And so here's a way that we can do this. Mr. Thomas Klein.
Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Klein. I'm the CEO of Be the Partner. We deliver a new product. It's a shared patient platform. And maybe we start with a little mind game in the beginning. So imagine Amazon would delete at the end of every year all customer accounts. And we start in January to gain customers again, and at the end of the year, remove all accounts. Would this be a clever business model? No, it would be crazy to do so, but this is pretty much what the pharma industry is doing right now at the end of every clinical trial phase. Removing all of the accounts of the potential future customers or of the partners during the clinical trial. And that's where we work here on a strategic level to overcome this strategic dilemma that at the end of the trial, more or less all patient data are vaporized, is swept away. And all the money invested in even the patients coming to an end to finalize a clinical trial disappear. This is one thing where we're delivering on a strategic level. The other thing what Be the Partner platform is doing is helping to overcome an issue in the operation. So we all know this pipeline, the leaking pipeline, and a lot of companies doing a great job in a perfect recruiting, very good recruiting, in trying to keep the patients in the clinical trial. And so what we are doing, we are not in all of this. What we're doing is very simple. We just put buckets under this leaking pipeline. And what we like with a leaking pipeline, so there's coming oil, or if you like so, the oil of the 21st century, the data coming out of it. And it's not only about the patients leaking out during the trial. What I said at the beginning, we are working here on this to keep and recapture the data of the alumni of clinical trials, that there's a long-term connectivity for the sponsor. And we call it a shared platform, as this is a pan-industry approach, so all of our partners have access to it. The platform works already in the United States. We are growing with our industry partners now into 25 countries till beginning next year, and end of next year we will be present in more than 40 countries. So this is our mission. We stop the patient's disappearing act, and what we provide is a shared patient platform. How does it work? On the bottom you see here symbolized the clinical trials, starting with a pre-screening, and if you like so, with the last visit then in the end. So in the center is a patient. That's what I like with Matt's presentation here. It's all about patient centricity, what we are doing. So we have the patient in the center on our platform, and at any time during pre-screening, from pre-screening to last visit, we can opt in the patient on the platform. It's actually done most times along with signing the patient, the ICF in the clinic. They opt in on the platform, and in this moment the patient, as we know the identity of the patient, as we are the trusted intermediary, we can talk to the patient on behalf of the sponsor. The patient receives a very warm welcome note on behalf of the sponsor directly to the patient. We visualize the trial rationale and explain why the sponsor is doing it, what is going to happen in the next 10 years, where does he contribute his help here that there will be better therapies on the market. We provide a lay summary of prior trials and a copy of the informed consent. We can do this with all known electronic informed consent as well. During the trial with our system, the sponsor can communicate with the patient, and our sweet spot actually is at the end of the trial. At last visit, the patient receives again from the sponsor, on behalf of the sponsor, thank you note, a personalized thank you note. We can combine it with exit surveys to learn more about the perspective of the patient to the trial, what the patient wants to do in the future, and other things. The lay summary can be provided once it's ready, months, a year later, and what we do actually, we return the personal health data of the patient, which were generated during the trial. We can do this, and actually we're doing it already during the trial. We provide for one of our industry customers after each visit the data, and actually this has a big impact. We have in some sites more than 90% adoption rate of patients who want to be on the partner platform, and we had some patient in pre-screening where we tested the user interfaces. They're calling us today and say, hey, I had yesterday my visit, checking today with a partner, where are my data? We said, hang on, this costs a while because it's coming from the sponsor. The sponsor decides which data are going back, and then at the end of the trial we're doing it. If a patient is a screen failure, leaks out, at any time we can directly with our engine provide the patient offers to other clinical trials. First of all, what we do is in this moment the patient is still with the sponsor. It's more or less at this moment there's still exclusivity for the sponsor paying us for the services, but when the patient then totally leaks out or would leak out or would leave, we offer him all other available trials as well, which are possible. And what we are offering to the patient, and it's up to the patient's here to try with the seat, because the data shared with the patient after the trial, whether the patient left the trial earlier or finalized the last visit, the patient can decide, yes, I want to have a long-term connectivity with the sponsors. I want to learn more about once the product is on the market. I want to see whether it's good for me and other things. So there's a long-term connectivity what we're doing. And finally, we offer the patient, and this is free for the patient, be the hub of your data. The patient can share, identify the data, as we don't deliver a graveyard of letters or numbers. We deliver a system where the PCP or specialist can dive in and work with a patient on the data, scientifically validated data from a clinical trial, and work with a patient alongside our data do it. The patient can share his or her data with platforms like Patients Like Me and others, where he can contact with other patients after the trial, and the patient can donate to repositories for where researchers have access the data, because the patient is the owner of this data, the co-owner, once the data are given back. And these data are not proprietary endpoint data on the product. These are the lab data, general data, which were waived by the HIPAA waiver during the trial, but then the patient has a right to get it back, and that we might make here work. Our business model, how it works, we go for a subscription with a platform, with our pharma partners. We have first customers which subscribe the platform, and then the customers can contact after the patient is leaking out directly, automatically, other trials from they have there which may fit for the patient, or other trials, and they have the long-term connectivity. They can, if you like, so talk to the partner, to the patient as a partner, and be long-term in the communication. What we do then per trial, we offer a welcome and thank you package as a standard. This is for each trial, defined in the beginning with a sponsor and which data goes back. And what we offer additionally, if you like, so on the dim sum menu, where we integrate here with our partner BBK, we're very much like to work with them. Other services which we are not offering, which seamlessly are integrated with BBK's tool suite. So I thank you for your audience here, and Matt, hand over again to you. Thank you very much for the chance to present here.
Thanks very much, Thomas. So I mentioned before, content is king, and I can't imagine anything being more king than that type of content. So that was really awesome. That's cool. And so I'm just going to go over to a Q&A format. If anybody's got any questions right now, I just wanted to say that before we just do that, is to say, I hope what you walk away from this talk today, thank you so much for participating, but when you walk away from this, I want you to know that all of these things, again, are available today to integrate into your clinical trials. You just have to take technology and orchestrate your patient engagement strategy using that technology. It's just a mind shift that you can see that you have a whole lot of tools that are available to you now to actually engage the patient very, very well. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll take any questions from the audience in the last 2 minutes. I think we've got right now. 2 minutes, I'm being signaled, 2 minutes. Any questions? Question at the back from Ms. Jane Miles.
It's so cool, thank you for sharing. I have a question for Dr. Klein. Yeah? Actually, 2 questions.
Yeah, thank you.
First question is, have you tried out your platform outside of the United States, and have there been any concerns at all?
The platform runs actually with real trials in the United States. The platform could run in Germany as well. We made it there in some beta testing, and we are based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Berlin in Germany. Where obviously I come from. So it could run there. We say if you can make it in Germany, you can make it all over Europe. Actually, France is more complicated, but we are rolling it out within the next 6 to 9 months all over Europe and in about 15 other countries worldwide.
Okay, next question is, how customizable is the data feed back to the patients? Because you mentioned lab data, and sometimes that's a challenge. Like, it could unblind a study.
It's totally up to the sponsor. We are only the delivery boys. We deliver the pizza right in time, perfectly and hot. The toppings, it's up to you.
Great questions. I think we're being given the hook right now, so we'll just get hooked up. Oh, so please remember to take the Focus 5 ebook on the chair in front of you. That's got a lot of information in there about all of these different strategies, technologies, and I hope to talk to you at the booth. Thanks very much.